Welcome to Theater Talk. I'm Ed Shopes. Co-host Ann McBride and I are here with you the first and third Fridays of the month to tell you about what's happening in the Mid-Willamette Valley theater world. Hi, Ann.
Hi, Ed, and welcome, theater lovers. Here on Theater Talk, we interview interesting guests about great shows happening at theaters throughout the Mid-Valley. Who are we talking with today, Ed?
Well, Ann, joining us first on this episode of KMUZ Theatre Talk are Gallery Theater Director Katrina Godderz and her set builder, actor, husband, Daric Moore, to tell us about Pride and Prejudice, which opens July 28th in Gallery's Arena Theater.
And in our second interview, we'll talk with Keizer Homegrown Theater's Executive Director, Linda Baker, about The Book of Will by Lauren Gunderson, opening July 14th.
But first, let's check our KMUZ Theater Talk calendar to see what else is on the boards. Ann?
Albany Civics Theater at albanycivic.org. Albany Civics Summer Theater Camp runs July 31st through August 18th, and they perform My Son Pinocchio Jr., August 18th to 26th. They will also hold auditions July 10th through the 12th for the Savannah Sipping Society and July 24th through 26th for She Kills Monsters. Contact the website for further information.
Brush Creek Playhouse at brushcreekplayhouse.com. Starting July 14th, Brush Creek is launching an improv workshop led by Brush Creek regular Ron Drake and his capable assistant, Norman Gouveia. No previous experience is necessary. Just come on in and give it a try and learn the fun of improvisational comedy. Brush Creek will also present the melodrama The Rustler's Revenge, July 28th through August 13th, and that's directed by Norm Gouveia. Brush Creek Playhouse is calling for actors of all abilities to audition and directors to propose for shows at their playhouse. So if you're interested in being on stage or directing, they really need you.
Children's Educational Theater at cetsalem.org. CET's 2023 season for students entering grades 4 through 12 is running right now through July 29th. They will have their first performance July 21st at the Salem Art Fair and Festival in Bush's Pasture Park.
The Elsinore Theater at theelsinoretheater.com for local events and touring shows at the Elsinore. Go to their website or their Facebook page.
Enlighten Theatrics at enlightentheatrics.org. The Broadway Dreams Workshop has returned to Enlighten Theatrics. They offer performers a chance to work with entertainment professionals to polish their triple threat skills. And you can see what they've been working on by going to enlightentheatrics.org to buy tickets to the Broadway Dreams Showcase on stage one night only on July 9th. Registration for Enlightened Summer Camp 2023 is now open. This camp runs August 14th through 25th with expanded class offerings, including skill-based classes for middle and high school students and an introductory theater class for elementary students. For information on this summer camp and to apply for scholarships, go to enlightentheatrics.org.
Gallery Theater at gallerytheater.org. Next up on Gallery Theater stage is Pride and Prejudice, July 28th through August 13th. And we'll have an interview later on in our show with director Katrina Godderz and her set builder and actor husband, Daric Moore. Currently in rehearsal at Gallery is Matilda the Musical, and that'll be on stage September 8th through October 1st. And Gallery's planning on auditioning soon for their productions of Puffs and Anne of Green Gables. So check Gallery's website to sign up and get audition notices.
Keizer Homegrown Theater at keizerhomegrowntheater.org. Coming up July 14th through 30th is The Book of Will by Lauren Gunderson. Linda Baker, who is the director of the play and also the executive director of KHT, will be on later in the program to talk about it.
The Majestic Theater in Corvallis at majestic.org and also at the Majestic Theater on Facebook. The Majestic Youth Theater presents Disney's Beauty and the Beast, July 27th through 30th, and that's followed by Majestic Summer Youth Camp production of Shakespeare's Comedy of Errors on August 25th through 26th. And November 4th through 19th, Cantor and Ebb's hit musical Cabaret, directed by Deborah Wren, will be on stage at the Majestic Theater in downtown Corvallis. You can get tickets for all of these shows at majestic.org.
Mid-Valley Musical Theater on Facebook at Mid-Valley Musical Theater. They are presenting the musical Newsies August 11th through 19th at the Albany Performing Arts Center at West Albany High School.
Pinnacle Theater at pinnacletheater.org. Coming up August 11th through September 2nd at Pinnacle is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, directed by Debbie Neal. We'll have an interview with Debbie and some of the cast on our next edition of Theater Talk. And Joe Dodge's acting workshop for actors 18 and older is running at Pinnacle Theater's rehearsal studio in downtown Salem. To sign up, go to tickets.pinnacletheater.org.
The Salem Playhouse at thesalemplayhouse.com. They are also offering acting classes for both kids and adults, held at Keizer Homegrown Theatre and for adults at Chemeketa Community College in their theater. To sign up, go to thesalemplayhouse.com and click on the Classes tab.
Spotlight Community Theater is at spotlightct.com, and Spotlight is holding its first annual Beverly Wilson Summer Youth Drama Camp. It will be July 31st through August 4th, and you can find more information at spotlightct.com. Spotlight is also looking for play proposals from local directors for their 2023-24 season. Send your application now to info@spotlightct.com.
Struts and Frets Theater Company at strutsandfretstheater.org. A Winter's Tale is coming to Struts and Frets August 16th through 19th at Eola Hills Wine Cellars on Highway 99 in Rickreall. We hope to have them on our next Theater Talk program to talk about their production.
Theater 33 at Willamette University is at theater33.org. Theater 33's 10th News Play Summer Festival of Emerging Works by Pacific Northwest Playwrights is going strong in Willamette University's Pelton Theater. Working for Crumbs, a new play by Kate Delaney, runs July 13th through 16th in the theater's Putnam studio, and that's directed by Susan Coramel. And the festival wraps up August 10th through 13th with The Names by Paul Lewis, directed by Rod Sabalos. The festival also includes pop-up performances of new plays on the Pelton Theater main stage. Remaining are The Great Bub by Nora Douglas, and that runs July 22nd and 23rd, and A Tale of Two by Angela M. Gurko, which closes out the festival on August 19th and 20th. Check out our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast for an interview with Susan Coramel and Thomas Nabhan to learn more about Theater 33's 10th New Play Summer Festival.
On the college front, Corbin University at corbin.edu/theater-arts. This year, Corbin Theater Camp runs July 24th through August 5th. Listen to our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast to hear an interview with the camp's director, Tamara McGinnis.
Western Oregon University is at wou.edu/theater. And Western has announced that with the departure of Creative Arts Chair David Janowiak to lead the theater program at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, the Valley Shakespeare Company is on temporary hiatus this summer. We hope that Valley Shakespeare Company will be back next summer with another outstanding production, and we'll keep you posted as we learn more.
Willamette University at wutheater.com. Willamette's 2023-24 season kicks off October 26th through November 12th with the world premiere of In the Deep, a new musical with book and lyrics by E.M. Lewis and music by Clarence Roscoe McDonald. And that wraps up this week's Theater Talk calendar.
Stay with us as we interview Gallery Theater Director Katrina Godderz and set builder Daric Moore about Pride and Prejudice, opening July 28th in Galleries Arena Theater.
We're talking with Katrina Godderz and Daric Moore of the Pride and Prejudice production that's opening at the Gallery Theater. Katrina is the director, and Daric Moore is both building the set and playing Mr. Bennet. Welcome to Theater Talk, you guys.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
So, Katrina, is this your first directing opportunity at Gallery?
No, it's actually my second. I directed the show The Actor by Horton Foote in the one act, which was this past January. We had a little evening called Dreams and Nightmares. We did The Actor, and then we did The Actor's Nightmare, and had a lot of fun with that. So that was a one act show that I directed. And then I have managed to have the opportunity to direct this production, and it is wonderful.
What is your vision for Pride and Prejudice? How are you going to stage it?
Well, this is a unique show because Kate Hamill, who wrote this particular adaptation, she really adapted it quite a bit. And it is a sassy, very spirited, very fast-paced, quick-moving, quick-witted, almost farcical at times, even a little slapstick version of Pride and Prejudice. It is abridged. There is not every scene. And if you're somebody who's read the book or knows the full plot of the original, you will note that there's a few characters missing and there's a few scenes that have been cut. Although I will say she did a fantastic job maintaining the flow and not eliminating any of the main plot elements or sort of intrigues that happen. She really knew Pride and Prejudice when she wrote this. And so she's created a very funny, very fast-paced, lots of laughs, lots of movement show. So people who love Pride and Prejudice, this will be something new for them that they haven't seen before. And my vision for this show was to keep it as bright and keep it as lively as possible. So we have a lot of use of color in the show, in the costumes, in the sets. People have bouncy balls that they're throwing back and forth. There's bells ringing and lots of things going on that give it a sense of brightness and lightness and color and activity and movement.
Wow. I can certainly understand why there have been characters cut, because it's got a lot of characters and a lot of scene, like different places for the scene. How are you doing the ballroom things?
Well, you're right. There are quite a few different scenes in this particular adaptation. We have 7 different places that we have to go.
Wow.
So we've created a relatively fun, but also neutral and static background, which is not a pure literal background. It's more of representational of just a place. Mm-hmm. And then we have some furniture that switches around. We have some things that change, but it's quite a minimal set in terms of what maybe you've seen, or at least compared to what authentic Regency England would look like. And that enables us to move really quickly within seconds, 10 to 15 seconds tops between scenes, and then just move from one scene to the next with a pretty good amount of flow. And the way it's written, Kate Hamill did a brilliant job. Just the flow goes well and it just feels natural. So it's strange, but you don't necessarily even need to know where you are, just kind of you're in a different space. And
right.
This is now happening, because this is a very, very plot-driven narrative. And so as long as you're just following that the characters' intrigues are happening and miscommunications are happening and so is falling in love with so-and-so, then you're there.
That's wonderful, because creating a Regency set would be kind of death-defying.
Yes, and Daric is our set builder, and he's got a lot on his plate right now with a home renovation and his parents having recently moved and having to clear out their house. So I thought, let's make this really elegant, really classy, but also really simple for Daric to build.
It's great. I love it.
Daric, do you want to talk about the set?
I think she said it perfectly, in that the characters are driving the story. The set is just to place you visually in semi-elegant Regency England, and the individual places will be taken care of by the actors. So we basically have a background that makes you feel English, but other than that, it's the placement of the furniture and the action. So the set is, for the most part, just a supporting piece.
That's very theatrical.
Yeah, it is. It lends itself to this particular script because she very much wanted it to flow. So the flowing, like people are even going to be moving things while the next scene is beginning. It's not going to be stop, lights go down, change the furniture. It's very much a flow, and she wrote it that way. She wanted the energy to keep moving because it's very fast paced. It's a very continual motion show.
And tell me about the actors, Katrina. Who do you have playing Elizabeth Bennet, and who do you have playing Mr. Darcy?
Sure. So for Elizabeth Bennet, we have Allie Bean. Allie is somebody you guys may recognize. She was in the Gallery Theater's production of Mamma Mia last summer. She played the role of Sophie the daughter. And then she was also Liesel in Sound of Music. And in the role of Mr. Darcy, we have Nehemiah Creel, who is devastatingly handsome and has the right look, the brooding. He can narrow his eyes. He's got the dark hair. And
like Laurence Olivier.
Yes, he's very lovely. And Nehemiah, I know, is capable of being very steamy, but also being a shameless flirt. And so I know that he will just really slay the audiences. We have some other delightful characters. A new actor to the Gallery Theater named Sean Brady is playing the role of Mr. Collins, and he has us all in stitches already during rehearsals. We have another new actress, Lisa Grishenko. She's playing Lydia, and she is very teenage in the way that Lydia is meant to be. And then we have Megan Reed. She played the mother in Barefoot in the Park. She is Mrs. Bennet, and her vocal theatrics throughout the show are something really to be commended. Every rehearsal, I'm like, Megan, don't wear out your voice. She goes, I can't do this role unless I do it like this. Mrs. Bennet just needs to be this way. And she's going to be just truly over the top, fantastic. So, and then we have a whole lot of other characters that are, it's just too many. Everybody's great. Everybody's really great.
For those people who may not know the entire plot of this show, can you just give us a little synopsis of the storyline?
The show opens up in the Bennet household. It's a household with 4 daughters. In the book, it's 5, but in this adaptation, Kate Hamill's written in only 4. So it's a husband and wife, and they are in the upper class. Mr. Bennet is a gentleman. He does not work. They have money and an estate. And unfortunately, they never had a son. So they have 4 daughters, and they have to get them married off because the estate would have passed to the son, but they don't have one. So instead, it's going to go to a cousin. So Mrs. Bennet is plotting throughout how to get her daughters married off to wealthy men. And of course, the intrigue begins when a eligible, very wealthy bachelor moves into the neighborhood. Then throughout the show, that people are in love, but then circumstances kind of conspire against them to keep them apart. Then, of course, the cousin who is going to inherit when Mr. Bennet passes away comes into the show. There's this expectation that he may marry one of the daughters, but things don't work out quite that way. And then, of course, Mr. Darcy is the friend of the eligible bachelor who's moved into the neighborhood, and he meets Elizabeth, and the two of them have that romance novel type sparks where in the beginning they hate each other, of course, but hearts can change and things conspire to kind of keep their relationship at a distance in a sense. But a lot of it's just that social commentary in the sense that it's not that they're far apart from each other geographically so much as they see each other in a different way, which is misunderstanding the other person. And a lot of Pride and Prejudice is about one person misunderstanding what the other person feels or the other person's perspective. Mr. Darcy is pride. Miss Elizabeth Bennet is prejudice. And so they're kind of at this clash of where they have these different perspectives, but deep below, they have this affection and admiration for each other and mutual respect. And of course, in the end, all these little strings come back together in the final scene and work themselves out.
What's the message in this show? What do you hope audiences will take away from your production?
A few things. The first thing is I hope they have a lot of fun watching it. We're having a lot of fun doing it, and it's going to be a really fun show to be in the audience for. And so I hope people just laugh and have a really fun time and feel energized. And also, for people who are familiar with Pride and Prejudice, they think, wow, I've never seen it that way before. That was great. I also want people to realize that when we communicate with other human beings, and this I think was what Jane Austen had in mind, what's being said and what's being heard, or what's being intended and what's being perceived are not always the same thing. And so we can misunderstand somebody or misinterpret somebody. And what they're saying is they think that they're communicating one thing and you are understanding them in a totally different way that wasn't their intention. And neither person's wrong. It's just that's the way that human beings are. A lot of times in farce, it's on mistaken identity. In this case, it's a mistaken intention or a mistaken purpose to what somebody's trying to say. And so I hope people kind of realize that communication between human beings, especially when there's love or money involved, is often fraught with misinterpretation.
Wow, that's a great summing up.
I want to just circle back with Daric for a sec. Is this show being produced on the main stage theater or? Oh, that's great. So it's a more intimate production.
Yes.
So you've been able to keep that scale with the set design and construction as well, right?
Yeah. The challenge is to fit a couple of scenes, especially the ball scenes, a lot of people on this small stage. So that's another reason we wanted the set to be fairly minimal, because if you have too much stuff, you can't fit all the bodies. And
how many bodies are there? How big is the cast?
14 cast members in total.
That's a lot of people to fit on that little stage.
Yeah, I think at the maximum we have is 13, because when we have the balls, there is a character who's not at the balls. 2 characters. So I think we're only fitting 12 on stage at any one given time.
Oh, only 12.
Only 12.
And set pieces.
I don't know when the last time you saw a show at the arena was, but it's been switched. The setup has been switched to the chairs are all at one end, and now the stage is at one end, as opposed to in the round, or in the half round
thrust.
So
yeah.
Thrust. It's slightly different setup now, which gives us a little bit more space and or freedom in terms of entering on both sides. I think you'll find that it fits nicely to keep that intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
They're only and the energy of the play when the balls are happening is a feeling of lots of people because it's a small space.
Sure.
And there's only a few scenes where there's that many people. So I don't think it's going to feel terribly crowded. I hope that the feeling is, this is a big experience with lots of people and this is energetic. That's what we're hoping.
That sounds good.
This is not your grandmother's Pride and Prejudice. Be prepared to have some sassy sort of, I wouldn't say adult theme. This would be appropriate for teenagers. I think small children would be bored because it's going to be over their head. But there is some, there's some wink, wink, nudge, nudge moments. It's that kind of a Pride and Prejudice.
It sounds like fun.
You will still have a few straight characters, because if you're going to have a good, good comedic, you have a few characters who the wild ones bounce around. So you still have some of that upper crust Englishness, but then it devolves into mayhem and interest and quite just hilarity, really.
Well, Daric, you're playing Mr. Bennet, and he's kind of a character who watches everybody.
He's one of the straight characters upon which a lot of the humor bounces off of. He's the calm in the middle of the storm, as it were.
And he's watching everything.
In this particular adaptation, he still has his moments of being a little bit silly or a little bit, let your hair down. Not in a massive way, but enough to make him human, as opposed to just robotic.
That sounds great.
Katrina Godderz and Daric Moore. This sounds like a really great production. It's Pride and Prejudice. It's at the Gallery Theatre in McMinnville. You can find out more about the show and get tickets at gallerytheatre.org. The play runs Friday, July 28th through Sunday, August 13th. That's 9 performances on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. Curtain on Friday and Saturday is at 7:30, and curtain at the Sunday matinee is at 2:00. It's appropriate for teens and older. And it's, it's a classic play. It's not your grandmother's Austen, so go and see it. It's going to be a fun production. Thank you very much, Katrina Godderz and Daric Moore, for joining us here on Theatre Talk.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Up next on today's Theatre Talk is our interview with Keizer Homegrown Theater's Executive Director, Linda Baker, to tell us about The Book of Will by Lauren Gunderson that opens at Keizer Homegrown July 14th. Stay with us.
We're talking with director Linda Baker of The Book of Will, and it's opening at the Keizer Homegrown Theatre July 14th through 30th. You're wearing a different hat, Linda.
I'm still wearing the other hats, but this is my favorite hat.
Well, I'm pleased to see that this show is being done here in Salem. I think the Book of Will is probably one of the better scripts that Lauren Gunderson has written, and she's written quite a few. She's a really popular playwright right now. I know that we've interviewed about several shows that she's written that have been produced at various theaters around. Linda, what brought you to do the Book of Will at Keizer Homegrown Theatre?
Oh, this is a story. Actually, this is the last of the 2020 season that had been planned, and then, things happened. One of my board members, Jeff Minden, saw this play in Ashland and brought it to me and said, we have to do this. And it's a perfect show for us because we started with Shakespeare at Shakespeare in the Park, the amphitheater in Keizer. And I did Shakespeare for forever in conjunction with Ben Hayes, who was an Angus Bomer protege in Ashland. And a lot of the people in Keizer, because they have had the opportunity all the way through high school, whatever, to see Shakespeare, know Shakespeare. So it was our play. It really was. And I read it. And it is two things. One is kind of a history of how the first folio got produced, which was interesting, and also a love letter to theater. And how can those two things go wrong?
That sounds perfect.
It is our show. It absolutely phenomenal. And top that off. Okay, so 2020, but finally made it to it was intended originally for the amphitheater, finally made it to us in 2023. And so eerie, the folio was first published in 1623. So we're doing it in the 400th anniversary of the publishing of the first folio.
Wow.
Tell us about the premise of the show and who are Henry Condell and John Hemmings?
Henry Condell and John Hemmings were dear friends in connection with John Burbage. They were kind of the last of the old guard King's men. They were contemporaries of Shakespeare and his friends. Actually, when he died, in his will, he left them money to buy 3 signet rings that they could wear, to remember him by. And according to the Lauren Gunderson version, when Burbage passed away, as this is about 7 years or so years after Shakespeare passed away, 2 things happened. One, after he left, a lot of really bad versions of Shakespeare started popping up because people would just put his name on it and then take what they remembered from seeing it and put it up, and it was awful. Mm-hmm. And also, when Burbage left, he was sort of the memory of the plays because he played everything. And, Henry Condell was the other man who did a lot of it. But they were getting older and Burbage was dead and they didn't have copies of those scripts. And they realized that something needed to be done. So this is history. This is also, literature. They got together, bet, borrowed, stole, and negotiated, and eventually gathered up some 36 plays of his and published them in a 900-page folio. And a folio was the most expensive thing that you could possibly publish on. But it was an act of love. They wanted to save those plays. And in reality, we would have lost at least half of them if they hadn't done that.
And who knows what versions we would have gotten.
Oh, that too. Yes, because, you send somebody to either memorize or copy down what he thinks he heard on stage, and then they take it back and print it and call it Hamlet.
Oh, Lord.
For folks who might not know how theater worked in those times, the scripts were handed out to actors at every rehearsal and then gathered back up after rehearsal and put under lock and key because the scripts were, how shall I say, subject to copying or could easily be stolen. And so Shakespeare's work was very closely guarded. And at the same time, they were all handwritten manuscripts. They weren't published.
The reality is they didn't even get full scripts. They got sides. So if you're playing Midsummer Night's Dream, Puck got Puck's lines, Titania got Titania's lines, Oberon got Oberon's lines, and then they all got up on the stage and tried not to bump into each other. So things got messy. I mean, there were very few actual full copies of those scripts as well. Only one would go to the Master of the Revels to make sure there was nothing in it that was offensive to the king. Only one for sure went. So it was really interesting. And in this play, when they're gathering up the plays, they find them all kinds of places, including one of the wives said, I did what Rebecca said, and I looked outside the privy.
Oh.
So it was a really huge undertaking and a real act of love and respect for that particular playwright.
Well, with that historical perspective, can you give us just a synopsis of Lauren Gunderson's take on this story?
Lauren Gunderson's take pretty much takes place in a Globe Theatre tap house, basically. So it starts out with a really bad version of Hamlet, and then segues to these guys who are after seeing the play have gone to the tap house to drink, and Burbage is at his royal Burbage theatrical fervor, and they just talk about how awful what has happened and what's going to happen and all of that. And then after Burbage passes away, then they begin that whole process. And it just shifts from scene to scene as they work through finding the plays, and like I said, finding them in weird places, and finding a printer who won't rip them off, and finding all of the things that they need to do, and getting Ben Jonson to write a foreword, because Ben Jonson and Shakespeare were frenemies. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
Huge rivals. In fact, Ben Jonson was kind of offended that they were printing his work in folio, because he actually published his own work in folio version earlier, a couple of years before that. And the fact that somebody else was going to do that kind of offended him. But he did write the introduction to the folio. So, and there's love, and there's sad, and there's all of those things that are Gunderson, and fabulous language, and some silly, stupid things that happen. But it's just it's a delightful piece of work. It's just such a joy to do. And the end, if we do it right, and I think we're on the way of doing that, should be the awe factor for this show. I'm really excited about that. That's all I'm going to say about it. Hopefully it will rip your theater goer's heart or your theater lover's heart out.
And you said before that this is kind of a love letter to the theater too.
Yes. There is a scene on stage when John Hemmings is in a very dark place, and he doesn't even know why he does it or anybody does it. And Henry Condell does this, explains to him that it's because you can feel and you can feel again. And if you didn't like what it was like last night, come back and we'll do it all over again. It's just gorgeous. We did the first read through. All 15 people in my cast are like, so
well,
it explains why we do this messy, dangerous, insane thing that all theater people do.
Speaking of the cast, who is in this play?
Coley Cutler, who played Oscar in The Odd Couple, plays Henry Condell, and Stephen Michael Purvis, who was the director of The Odd Couple, is playing John Hemmings. So that's rather interesting. They have sort of become different partners in crime for that. I have some people that people haven't seen. For a while, Becky Nielsen, who has been with Keizer Homegrown for forever, is playing playing John Hemmings' wife. Kelsey Wolster, who is kind of new to us, is Elizabeth Hemmings. Cassie McKenna, who is one of those actors who's just the North Star whenever she's on stage. She gets on stage and everything goes right. And she's playing Alice, the daughter of John Hemmings and kind of the mainstay of the tap house. And then Sam Tibbetts, who's done a number of things for us, mostly Shakespeare. That's kind of his thing. He's playing Ben Jonson, and he's this lovely man who's always in his cups, but terribly theatrical. And then Paul Nelson, who is like 72 feet tall, which makes it really interesting. He's kind of a mainstay. He and his wife are both in the show, but they're kind of mainstays of Spotlight Community Theater is playing Burbage, and he really only has one big scene, but he owns the stage for about 20 minutes. He's been on this, I think, since he first got his script 3 years ago. It's a scary part, but he's doing a really brilliant job.
Is this going to be at the theater?
Yeah, it has to be at the theater. The amphitheater is kind of in transition right now.
Oh,
And, during COVID, during all of those things, part of our own stage went away. So amphitheaters, the Keizer is talking to us about coming back, and we're hoping to be back doing Shakespeare in the Park next year. But this year it would be just way too much to do. So this one will be done in our theater. But the good news is it's very intimate and it's air conditioned.
That's important.
very appealing.
Tell us about the staging of the play, Linda. Are you doing it on kind of a Shakespearean stage, or how are you staging it?
Semi-Shakespearean. How's that? We're sort of doing it's a combination of black box and pieces of the globe. So it is designed to be not a real stage, not a real set, but pieces of a set. And then as the show changes, it goes from the tap house to the streets of London to backstage at the Globe to dual scenes on stage at the Globe and on the streets and different houses. And it's proving to be really workable. We're really having a good time with it. But we're doing it with a minimal amount of furniture.
That sounds perfect because Shakespeare, there was not a lot of furniture.
No. And, the Globe was designed to move quickly from scene to scene. So we're trying to achieve that in a tiny little space.
I love the intimacy of Keizer Homegrown's stage. It's lovely because you get to be close to the actors. You get to feel their experience as well as view it. If you were in a larger auditorium, you don't get the connection that you do to the stage that comes with seeing a show at Keizer Homegrown.
Well, thank you. I like that too. It's very character actor driven. It's kind of funny though, because there are a number of people who did Shakespeare with me in high school with Dan directing them. And Dan's thing was always toes on the edge of the stage. Well, if you go toes on the edge of the stage at Homegrown, you're practically in the laps of the people in the front row. So I'm having to say sometimes don't have to be quite that close, kids.
I just think it's wonderful. It sounds like a wonderful play.
It is. I am such a serious Lauren Gunderson fangirl. You can't even imagine.
Well, Lauren Gunderson is a prolific playwright. She's written many award-winning shows, and The Book of Will is one of them. It plays at Keizer Homegrown Theatre every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, opening July 14th and closing July 30th. Friday and Saturday shows are at 7 p.m. Sunday matinees are at 2 p.m. And you can get your tickets at KeizerHomegrownTheatre.org. Linda Baker, thank you so much for joining us here on Theater Talk.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
It's time to wind up today's KMUZ Theater Talk program. Thank you for joining us. Next week at 9 a.m., you can tune in to Talking About Art with Joel Zack. KMUZ is a proud member of the Salem Theater Network.
KMUZ Theater Talk airs at 9 a.m. the first and third Friday of the month at 100.7 and 88.5 FM and on your favorite radio app or on demand at kmuz.org. And you can listen to KMUZ Theater Talk anytime on your PC, mobile device, smart speaker, or in your car, wherever you get your podcasts.
Ed and I will be back July 21st with a brand new KMUZ Theater Talk program to fill you in about what's happening in the Mid-Willamette Valley theater world. In the meantime, check our Theater Talk Facebook page for news and updates about live theater in the Mid-Willamette Valley.
If you haven't yet joined in to support Theater Talk and the rest of KMUZ's great community radio programs, go to kmuz.org right now and click the Contribute button at the top of the page. And thanks. Until next time, we'll see you in the front row.